subject to the food stamp waiver. And I'm trying to get to somewhat the question that I asked of Marilyn. I mean, is there a balance between the money that the administration has given to the food banks directly and the where the money has been lost on the other end with the food bank?
I mean, as she said, the people that are dealing with these populations on a daily basis will tell you that decision to cut basically food stamp eligibility for about 130,000 people in Ohio was devastating to those individual families. And you can't say, well, it was all made up because by executive order some food banks got some additional money. First of all, there's an assumption built into that all of the people that were cut off immediately have access to the funds and the resources that the food bank have. Well, that's not always true either. And the way that and that decision was made last year, they just kind of renewed it or reinforced it this year, so it hasn't been repealed. And the whole premise of it was that the economy was doing so good and the unemployment rate had gone down by so much that it was no longer necessary. It's such a simplistic way of looking at, first of all, what this recovery has actually, the way it's been experienced by people. I thought her comments about suburban poverty were really powerful, because we do have kind of a two-tier economic recovery, and that's the reality. And the fact that the unemployment rate has gone down, there are plenty of people that are employed that still need help with food stamps, because the vast majority of jobs that have been created in the last 4 years have been low-wage jobs. So it was really a short-sighted thing. I can tell you, as a county official, we dealt with that in terms of then trying to place those people. We were given very little lead time in terms of trying to place those. Our share, which was around between 30 and 40,000 just in my county, we were given very little lead time to do that. So I thought it was a very bad political decision. I thought it was done for political reasons. I thought it was done to try to show that we were going to crack down on food stamp use, and we were going to show that the state was in recovery. And I just really thought wasn't just. Not only was it not the compassionate thing to do, it just wasn't even the rational thing to do, because we've got to get people really back on their feet, and just cutting them off like that I thought was unconscionable.
What did you mean by place people?
Well, because there's work requirements, so you have to either place them in full-time work or volunteer work. So the assumption is that in a lot of these areas there is work available for them. If there isn't paid work available for them, then in order for them to continue to receive benefits, they have to do volunteer work. So you're talking about somebody that's under the poverty line that is then supposed to do volunteer work for other people that are under the poverty line. And there was very little, that's 130,000 placements. And as was mentioned, some of those people have significant either mental or physical or transportation challenges. So it was just kind of thrown onto the counties that either you're going to cut those folks off or you're going to try to make efforts to place them. So we ended up spending additional hundreds of thousands of dollars to try to hurry up and hire staff to place those people. It was another instance of the state actually passing costs down, because we were given the choice of either just cutting those people off cold or saying, okay, let's ramp up our efforts, because we're given very little lead time to try to place them in either work or volunteer opportunities.
Ed, the governor was in this building a few months ago signing a mid-biennium budget bill. The head of this organization and other social service groups were praising him for what he's done for food banks, what he's done for the needy in the state. How do you balance that with what you just said?
Well, I would balance it by what you just heard and what you just saw and what you just witnessed. Look, in my county, for instance, we were talking about what Franklin County does for this food bank. We happen to give $1 million a year out of our budget every year to food banks, to our central food bank. And when we hand that check over, we certainly get a lot of praise and we get a lot of thanks. I mean, if you give an institution that's based on donations, a donation and extra help, they're certainly going to say thank you. But what you need to look at is what's really happening in this state. Has this been in an economy, which, to use the governor's words, is a miracle? And when you hear the stories, the very powerful stories that you heard today, where you have even people in suburban areas where you have food pantry usage is going through the roof, you know that we're not really meeting our needs. And when you're giving money on the one hand, but then cutting 130,000 people off of food stamps, as she said, it's a decision that just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. The fact is we've got 1 out of 4 children in this state that are in poverty. We have the numbers of individuals that are having to rely on food stamps and on food pantries is going up. So we have a lot of work to do. And although there have been occasional efforts by the governor to do something, there's also been a lot of things pushing in the other direction. And it certainly hasn't been a priority of this administration, not in a significant way.